everyone, today in this video I'm going to explain some common structures, that is complex structures. I'm going to explain you how to use these complex structures in your IELTS writing task 2, because these structures could only be used in IELTS writing task 2. So I'm going to explain these structures to you so that you could understand these structures in a better way, and I want that you also use these structures in a correct way, otherwise you will lose your band score. But if you use these structures in a better way, then definitely it will help you to increase your band score, that is up to 0.5 to 1 band in IELTS writing. So let's start, and I'm going to explain these structures to you. And before starting these structures, I just want to tell you that these structures starts with although, even though, despite, while, and not only but also. So I'm going to explain these structures to you so that you could understand it and use these structures according to the question without making any kind of mistake. So let's start. Now I'm going to give you some examples related to that. For the examples related to although, even though, and despite of, because all these structures have similar meaning. So although, even though, despite of help to express the contrast of two things. So I'm explaining it again, that although, even though, and despite of, we use these structures in order to express contrast of two things. So let's start. I'm going to give you example related to that so that you could understand it in a better way. So I'm going to give you first example related to although, and I also want to give you advice that always try to use although, even though, despite of in problem solution essay. You could also use them in advantages and disadvantages essay, and you could also use these structures in your conclusion also. Most of the time I recommend that try to use these structures in your conclusion, and try to use the structure related to while in your introduction, that is related to discussion essay. And always try to use not only and but also structure in your task 2 BP1 and BP2, that is in body paragraph first and body paragraph second. So let's start, and I'm going to give you an example related to although first. So for although, you could say that for related to advertisements, that although advertisements provide us knowledge about the new products in the market, but, and make sure that you should also use comma before but, because if you use comma after but, then also it is a kind of grammatical mistake. So make sure that you will use comma before but. So comma but advertising also promotes, or advertising also encourages people to purchase things that they really do not need, which means that it is a kind of contrast between two things, that is advantages and disadvantages of advertisements. So next I'm going to give you an example related to even though. So let's start. I'm going to give you an example related to even though, which is a contrast between technology and library. So let's start. Even though advancement in technology facilitated people to read any book at home, comma, but libraries should also be maintained to preserve our ancient books, which means that we could not find the ancient books in with the help of internet or with the help of advancement in technology. We could not translate all the books in electronical form. So that is the reason, although advancement in technology has helped people to read any book at home, but libraries should also be maintained in order to preserve our ancient books. Now I'm going to give you examples related to despite of, so that you could understand in a better way, and so that you could also understand how to make contrast between two things. So like this way you could use although, even though, and despite of in order to make contrast between two things in your IELTS writing. So let's start with despite of. I'm going to give you examples, and the first example is despite of many obstacles to complete project on time, comma, he refused to give up. And the next example is despite of applying for many job opportunities, comma, he is still unemployed. So like this way it is a kind of contrast between two things, and like this way you could use despite of, even though, and although in your IELTS writing task 2. And make sure that you could use these things in your conclusion, because it is good that if you use these things in conclusion. And now I'm going to give you examples related to while. And while is something that that is two things are happening at the same time. So while is used at that time, so that is the reason I will always suggest to you to use while in your discussion essay, because while is used in discussion essay to express something that is happening, that is something happening in the same time. So two things are happening in the same time. So for instance, while it is the duty of the government to provide education to the people at every level for free of cost, comma, others opine that it is responsibility of individuals to pay for their university education. So like this way, these are the two things which are happening at the same time, that some people believe that that is while, some people believe that it is responsibility of government, or it is duty of government to provide education to the people for free of cost. But some people, that is some people, others people opine that at the same time, others people are opining that it is responsibility of individuals to pay for their university education. So let me give you another example related to while, so that you could understand in a better way. For instance, it is related to layer time activities. So the example is, while some people think that it is important to plan for layer time activities, comma, others opine that it is considered as a wastage of time to make any kind of planning related to free time activities. So like this way it is a kind of two things which are happening in the same time. So now I'm going to give you examples related to not only but also. Not only but also help us to emphasis on your what you are going to say. So it help us to put emphasis on what we want to say at that time. So for instance, he is not only intelligent but also handsome. So I'm going to give you another example so that you could understand it in a better way. And the next example is, she not only forgot my birthday but also did not apologize me for forgetting it. So which means that she not only forgets my birthday but also she didn't apologizes me at that time. And the next example could be, he or she not only uh, participated in quiz competition but also won first prize. So she not only participated in a quiz competition, or you could say she or he not only participated in a painting competition or any kind of competition, or it could be sports competition also, but she also or he also won first prize at that time. So like this way you could use these structures, and these are the complex structures which I suggest you to try to use these structures whenever you are practicing for your IELTS writing task 2, so that you could understand these structures, that is how to use these structures. And I also hope that you will also use these complex structures in your IELTS writing task 2 during your examination time, so that you could achieve your desired band score.